Thank you so much for that intro, Millie. And thank you, Edja and Millie, both of you, for having me on here. You both know that I'm a huge GW fanboy, and I say yes to everything GW related always. It's always a huge pleasure to do anything with you because I'm a very active advocate for the generalist movement. And I think we can all agree that you're kind of championing this movement in a very, very impactful way. So it's super important work. It has had a huge impact on my own life and my own career. So I'm just super happy to be here doing this kind of stuff with you. And thank you everyone for coming. Uh, it's we're gonna do some fun stuff today. Hopefully you'll learn something. And I'm not sure the degree to which all the people here today are already Notion users, but if you don't have that much Notion experience, it's also totally fine. We're gonna do a little bit of high level intro also, just so nobody's lost, okay? But we'll do it super quickly. Before we get into everything, just while we're waiting for more people to arrive, we're gonna do a little icebreaker. We've all played Mad Libs before, right? It's a fun game from our childhoods. So what I did was I took the liberty. Actually, I'm going to share my screen first. How's that? There you go. Okay. I took the liberty to build a Notion-powered Mad Libs game. Okay. And those of you who have quite a bit of Notion experience will understand while I'm doing it how exactly it's built using a Notion database. But for anyone that wants to know more during the Q&A, I'm happy to explain exactly how I built this. Okay. So this is a team effort. You're going to volunteer words that I'm going to pop into all of these blanks. Whoops. You're going to volunteer those words in the chat. And then at the very end, we're going to plug it all in and we're going to get some kind of predetermined output using all of the words that we've put together as a team. Okay. One important suggestion, just try and keep all of your suggested words positive. And if they're quirky or weird or ridiculous or funny, that's fair game. It'll just kind of add some spice to the output. All right, so let's get started. Is everyone ready? Yeah. Okay. Thumbs up. I'm seeing thumbs up. Let's get an interjection to start with, and then maybe Edge and Millie, you can call them out so that
Yes.
I can pop them in.
All right. Wowza. I'm trying to see.
Wowza.
Wowza. Yikes.
Okay,
Hey.
wowza is good.
Wowza's good. Nice.
Adjective.
An adjective. I saw powerful.
Powerful. Okay.
They're coming so
Yeah.
fast.
All
Splendid.
right, another couple adjectives. Splendid. Okay.
Glorious.
Oh, all right. Opa.
Scrumptious.
Okay. Glorious. I'm going to do the UK spelling because I also live in
I'm
Canada.
disappointed no one said squiggly.
Squiggly is a good one, but we may have another opportunity for another adjective. So why don't we do that? Let's go squiggly.
Nice.
Okay. We need a few proper nouns.
Okay, we've got
All right. Your
Barcelona.
city or country. Barcelona. Good one. I was there 2 weeks ago. Lovely, lovely place.
We've got
Uh,
Denver.
Denver. Okay.
We've got Mongolia.
Nice. Mongolia. Okay.
And we've got Cape Town.
I love it. Okay. A gerund form of a verb. ING form.
Being.
I saw generalisting. That's funny. Um,
We've got being or dancing. That's a good one. Playing,
dancing.
dancing.
Okay. All right. Now we need three present forms of verbs.
Wow, these are coming so fast. Oh my gosh.
Eat, run, play, fish, write, massage. Okay.
Cook, grow, explore, play, explore,
Okay. Oh, I think we missed one. We need a plural noun.
plural noun.
I see apples. I see
Unicorns.
jelly unicorns. That's good. Okay. And lastly, we need a little interjection to close things off.
I'm so excited. Hold the phone. Eureka! Kaboom!
Eu-
This is so cool. Can we just play
Eureka.
this for the
Okay.
next hour?
So you see that we've got check marks on everything powered by a Notion formula, and that tells us that we're ready to go. So shall we plug it in?
Yes.
Okay. Are we sure? Yeah, I think let's do it.
The suspense.
Wowza, who knew that summer school could be so powerful? Of course, you can't expect a bunch of splendid, glorious generalists from places like Barcelona, Denver, Mongolia, and Cape Town to just sit around dancing like unicorns all summer. Naturally, we're going to want to level up our skills. So today, let's cook, let's grow, let's even explore in excitement because we're about to learn some squiggly Notion skills. Eureka!
Wow.
Well done, everyone. Thank you for participating in that. And on that note, uh, I think we can jump right in to talking about Notion. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me, and I think a bunch of you do because this is not the first time I've done a workshop with GW, but I work on the product adoption team at Notion. That is part of what I do because I have kind of a balanced work week between my Notion work and my own client work. On the Notion team, I work most specifically with templates in Marketplace as a first-party official Notion template creator and doing Marketplace operations. I also do a lot of cool partner projects with other brands that are doing projects with Notion. Recently, I've done projects with LinkedIn and with Substack. Super, super cool, fun stuff. I also recently started working with Notion's pro bono program, building Notion tools for NGOs and charitable organizations, among other things. So I basically am in kind of like a cross departmental role, which is quite perfect for me as a generalist. And I think that me landing, not I think, it is the case that me landing this role was a direct result of me figuring out how to position myself and tell my story by spending a lot of time interacting within the GW community. Um, so I also am the founder and organizer of the Notion Toronto community. We are, I think we may be the biggest Notion community in the world at this point, if not the biggest, in the top two or three out of like 100 cities, which is like a really cool thing. We've got something like 1,000 members or more, and we're consistently doing events, in-person events with 200 people at each. Very, very fun, exciting stuff. I also, for the last 3 or 4 years, have been doing Notion coaching and consulting with private clients. And I do that through my own consultancy. It's called Systematic AF. The name tells you everything you need to know. And then, of course, I'm a very proud and active member of GW and an advocate for the generalist movement in general. And I do writing and I do speaking and other content that kind of revolve around making space for these kinds of conversations out there, which I think are super, super important. So now that we've talked about me, let's just we'll gloss over just a very, very quick high level intro to Notion. So, oh, I see, I see in the chat that was the best icebreaker ever. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Um, I had a lot of fun building it. So I think most of you probably are here because you already use Notion, but if you don't, or if you're still kind of wondering, trying to figure out what Notion even really is, because that's frankly like a pretty common question. It's a lot of things, and it's kind of something different for everyone, but in a very, very broad general sense, Notion is an all-in-one workspace app. It's an app that brings all different kinds of tools that you might otherwise use from all different products. It brings them all into one. And by doing that, it eliminates this kind of SaaS product sprawl that all of us are living through, and it's happening to each and every one of us throughout our careers and our personal lives over the last number of years. And I think a lot of people love Notion because everything is together. And when everything is together, when all your tooling is together, and especially all your data and information is together, it all enjoys new value that's generated by virtue of the fact that it's all together and it's all connected. So that's like a really, really important thing. On top of that, Notion is obviously it's very collaborative, it's multiplayer, it's extremely flexible and customizable and personalizable. It's endlessly powerful, but also it can be as simple as you want it to be because you're building your own tools. And the most important thing at the end of the day is it's something that we tend to actually end up using. Okay. What's it good for? It's good for a lot of different kinds of things, but I'm going to send out a link to this article that I wrote last year about all the things that Notion is good for. It's like a super long article. It goes into great detail about all the different use cases. After this workshop, you're going to get a link to a resources page that I did specifically for the workshop, and the link will be in there. Okay, so if you feel like reading that, then it's all good. But this is kind of the main most important point about that I have kind of like an opinionated view on when it comes to why people use Notion or who should use Notion, and that is that it doesn't matter whether you're using Notion or whether you're using a stack of other tools. The only thing that really matters is that you're actually using the tools that are in your stack, whatever you've chosen. Okay. The the software or the groups of software themselves, they don't have inherent value. They are vessels for what you put in them. So if you are populating them with your data day to day, and you're putting your thoughts in, and you're putting your life in, you're putting your tasks and your projects and everything else in, that is what gives your tools value. And so if you do that in other tools and they're duct taped together in a way that is necessary for other tools that aren't quite as broad as Notion, if it's working for you, fine, power to you. Don't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay. But that being said, Notion just happens to be this tool that allows you to build your systems in that kind of like flexible, powerful, and most importantly, personalizable way. So you have a higher likelihood of actually using it and actually putting your data and your life into your tool. So I just think that in like a very general sense, people tend to adopt Notion in a very deep and very passionate way. And it's one of the only tools, and maybe one of the only brands I can think of that has this kind of like deep personal, people develop a deep personal connection to it. Like if you're a Notion person, you're a Notion person. You define yourself as a Notion person and you start to plug it into all things in your life, both work and personal and otherwise, in a way unlike other software tools. I mean, I suppose like some brands like Apple, maybe you're an Apple person, but there aren't too many brands like that, and Notion is definitely one of them. And the reason it's one of them is because of, well, everything we just talked about and the degree to which you can kind of like align it with your life and make it part of your workflow and your brain. And I talk to a lot of people, and I'm going to try and make this quick, and I'm not going to spend too much time going through the Notion components because I want to jump into the actual meat and potatoes. But I talk to a lot of people in my day to day of working on the adoption team and also doing Notion consulting. People on kind of both ends of the left brain, right brain spectrum. Some people that say, I am already a very organized person with a very systematic kind of brain, or I'm a creative and my brain doesn't work in databases. And I think that a tool like this, given its customizability, works really well for both ends of the spectrum, and of course, everything in between. It aligns perfectly with people who have systematized brains, and those kinds of people start using Notion and they just feel at home. They feel like, oh, this just already fits in with the way that I think. And on the other end of the spectrum, people who are creatives, it gives them structure to channel all of that kind of wild creativity that often needs to be channeled in order to have meaningful, marketable value, right? So I think Notion is a really great tool for pretty much everyone. I think that that's one of the reasons why it's hard to market a tool like Notion because it's not one exact ideal customer profile. It's everybody. So that's why we have an adoption team, a product adoption team. We help people figure out how to use Notion in their businesses and in their lives, and become Notion people. So without going too much into it, I'm going to give it like a really high level. So Notion, the way Notion is built, we've got our workspaces, which is the vessel in which all of the work that we do in Notion lives inside. And you can have multiple workspaces. You can have what I see very often. People have one workspace and one personal workspace, and they'll keep those quite separated and siloed. And within workspaces, if you're a business, then you can have what are called team spaces. Team spaces are basically just they're like permission groups. So you can have a whole bunch of pages and databases and tools that all are geared towards a particular department or a particular group of people, and you can give that entire group permissions to all of those things in one batch way. But if you're using Notion for personal use, then you don't need to use team spaces, and it's a moot point. The main building block of Notion is the Notion database, and we're going to look at Notion databases in detail when we start looking at some of the templates that I'm going to show you. But just so you have an idea, this is what a Notion database looks like in its kind of most simple form. It is a glorified spreadsheet, okay? And the default view is, in fact, kind of like a spreadsheet. It's a table, and it's got rows and it's got columns, but it doesn't exactly work like a spreadsheet because it's a lot more how shall I say? I don't want to say flexible because spreadsheets are also flexible in different ways, but you can customize it and turn it into a workable software tool in a way that you can't on on a spreadsheet. Okay, so you can build databases, you can build multiple databases and then connect them, and that's one of the things that gives Notion databases a lot of power because if you have, let's say, a client database and a projects database, of course, projects relate to a given client, right? So all we have to do is connect it using this thing called a relation property. And then all of a sudden we have that metadata of which client this particular project is for, or which projects are related to that client. And so this is like really, really basic level, but you can start to see how connecting data across different databases in Notion can give you can give your data elevated value. Okay, and all those columns we're looking at, those are called properties in Notion, and they're basically just a place, they're fields where you can put metadata into each one of your database entries. And then we start getting fancy with different views of the databases. We can have it in that kind of table spreadsheet kind of view. We can see it in like a Kanban pipeline board. We can see it in calendar view, in in like a Gantt timeline view, in a gallery view. There are a whole bunch of different views, and we can treat databases accordingly. And then we can go further and we can sort and filter and group the data in our databases in our different views and give additional value to the data that's inside them. So very, very high level. We've got pages. Right now we're on a Notion page. Pages can be nested within other pages, kind of like a Russian doll. And then, of course, databases can be nested within other pages. And then we've got blocks. This is kind of like the most basic building block of Notion. So on any new line, you can either click the plus or you can just type a slash. And it gives you this menu of about 100 or so building blocks that you can put literally anywhere in Notion. And it makes it endlessly flexible. People liken Notion to the Lego of software, and that is because it is very much that. You can start putting together things exactly the way that you want to, and build your own systems and build your own tools. And then I just quickly want to mention templates. Notion has, you know what, I can even go right here. We've got a template store. This is, it's called the Marketplace. There are 40,000 or so Notion templates available, many or most of which are free, many of which are paid. And this is what I help to manage at Notion. So you can get started with pre-built, opinionated tools that are built by professional Notion template creators. And you don't have to get started from scratch if you don't want to. And when you start with a Notion template, you duplicate it into your workspace. From that point, you can take that and you can start customizing it to your own needs, which makes it super cool. So it's like a springboard. It's like something to start off with. And you don't necessarily need to have what they call blank page syndrome, where you start with a Notion page, you got all of these possibilities, and you just kind of don't know where to start. So templates is a very, very good, I like to call it like a gateway product. It's like a gateway drug for Notion. Okay. Lastly, I just want to mention that everything that you do in Notion, you can share with other people in a number of different ways. You can share it with other Notion users. You can share it with non-Notion users who can come in and use it as guests. And you can share it online. You can take any page in Notion and turn it immediately into a web page, which is called a Notion site. And you can apply custom domains. Very, very flexible. And we're going to look at one use case today about how to use Notion for a portfolio that you can share publicly. Okay. While I'm going through this, I just want to reiterate that if you have questions, then you can pop them into the chat. And at the very end, we're going to do a Q&A session. And Ajay and Millie are going to bring up the most asked questions, and we're going to try and get through as many of them as we can. Okay? All right. So while I was preparing for this workshop, I was trying to think of some good use cases for generalists specifically, and how generalists can leverage Notion in a way that'll add some value that you don't necessarily have that accessible to you if you're not using a tool like Notion. So I came up with four very high level, very simple ones that I think will appeal or apply rather to a lot of you that are here today. I think based on my experience in Generalist World, there are a lot of people who are freelancers or contractors or work with private clients at least for part of their work week. And I've been doing exactly that for a very long time. And I built a client projects dashboards template. I also recently in my last GW workshop, it was specifically about using Notion to manage your job hunt. And when I was looking for the opportunity that I'm currently in, I actually built this for myself and I used it and used it successfully. And it helped me a lot to channel my job search efforts. And so I decided to spin it up into an actual template, and I've shared it now with a lot of people. We'll also look at how to use Notion for, I want to say portfolio, but to me, portfolio means something that you share. This is bigger than that. Using Notion for your body of work, a place to capture everything that you produce and create in your career, and then the opportunity to share some of that in a granular way online in a shareable portfolio. And then lastly, uh, just yesterday, I had this thought that wouldn't it be cool for the people of GW to have a little calculator tool to figure out how much financial runway you have if you're considering taking a career sabbatical or quitting your full-time job to go off on your own, maybe start a business, maybe go into freelancing or consulting work or contracting work. It could be very, very helpful to figure out just how much time you have to survive without that stable income of your full-time job. So I built this very simple little tool. You put in your data, it spits out an output that'll tell you exactly how many months you've got. Cool. So let's let's jump in. In Notion, because we've already talked about how Notion allows you to share pages with whoever you like, a lot of freelancers and contractors and service providers use Notion to manage their projects internally, privately, but then also to have client facing dashboard pages or portals. And that's exactly what I built here. So this is one, excuse me, everyone. Sorry, I have this cough that I can't seem to shake. It's a centralized, very simple little database. But once we go into it, there's kind of more than meets the eye. So we've got a prospecting board where we can put what clients we've got on the radar and move them through the statuses to whether they're a hot prospect or whether we've booked them and they're upcoming. Once they're upcoming, they'll automatically go into this other view of this very same database. We're looking at the same entries, the same data, and we can see all of our upcoming projects in one place. And then once we change their status to active, then they go into our active projects board. And this is kind of where we live. I wake up in the morning, I go into my active projects, and I see what there is to do. Usually there aren't quite so many at a time, but this is just kind of for demonstration purposes. And then another couple of views. This is if you want to see your completed projects. So this is like a library, historical library archive of everything that you've done in the past. And then a couple that are all of the statuses in one view if you want to get an overhead view, and all of the statuses in one board view like that. So let's go to one of our active projects. This is an internal private page. And inside here, I have a client-facing dashboard for this particular client. And this dashboard page is the only thing that the client has access to. Everything else is private. So I can put my internal notes, planning, prep, all that kind of stuff. And then I can always capture the metadata of whether I've shared the dashboard with the client or not. So I always have oversight and control. So when I go into this particular client's page, I've got all kinds of different tools. I've got client resources for them to reference, my contact details, a place for them to put in their contact details of their whole team, their billing address for invoices, my bank details, all like admin stuff. I often set up a Slack channel for a client project, a dedicated Zoom room, and then I offer them Calendly booking links so that during the course of like a month-long or 3-month-long or 6-month-long project, everything is captured in one place here. This is the only place both sides, the contractor and the client, need to spend their time in. Okay. Another bit of tooling for collecting assets and content. I built this having done a lot of web builds, websites, branding projects, copywriting projects, strategic positioning projects, things like that. In all of those kinds of work, there are a lot of assets and there are a lot of things that clients need to deliver to me. And so this is a very tidy little place to capture it all and then to give a status to everything and even capture the date submitted for review And then within each one, you can have um, you can have all kinds of sort of deeper data. All right. This one is an hourly project, and I built two different models into this template. One is a fixed budget project, and the other is an hourly project. And so in the hourly project, we've got a place to actually log and report our hours that are to be billed. And then once they're billable, they go here. And then once they're paid, they go here. Everything is transparent and 100% organized. This goes a very long way, especially with hourly projects where there's not often a lot of visibility. And then let's see, got a little post project section. So we could put embedded looms, training the client how to use whatever we built for them, and a little client satisfaction survey, which uses a Notion form. And all of your clients, once you embed your little form and into each one of your client dashboards, all of the responses will actually aggregate into a central client satisfaction survey responses database that you have privately. All right. And then last couple of bits of tooling, we've got a homework board for us as the contractor to assign tasks, homework tasks to the client, and then a place where the client can ask questions and bring up new requests. It's like a ticketing board, basically. So it's not very complicated, but having everything organized in one place like this has a huge value internally. And having everything organized in one dashboard for your client also has a huge value. And I hear time and time again over the number of years that I've been using this exact template that the clients just feel like it's a stellar client experience because everything's organized, because everything's transparent, everything's shared. They feel like they can trust. And when you have trust from your client, and of course they keep coming back, and when they keep coming back, then your business is healthy and good and sustainable. And it's like all good stuff. It's a domino thing, right? So I am a big fan of using something like that. By the way, I'm going to give you all the links to all of these. A couple of them are paid and a couple of them are free. And I set up a discount code for GW. So you'll have all of that in the resources page at the end. Okay. Next up, let's take a look at using Notion to manage your job hunt. So job hunting is a very tough job, especially when you're doing it while you have a job or while you have other work going on. I think that it's even hard when you're doing a job hunt full time. So it becomes very, very important to channel your job hunting efforts and just make the most of the time that you spend, time and energy that you spend job hunting. So if you can keep everything nice and organized, then it greatly reduces the, I don't know, I want to call it like cognitive load that the job hunt process can have on you. I built actually five little interconnected, very simple interconnected databases to help you with this. And the process is like this. We're going to curate all the companies that we'd like to work for. And then we're going to start capturing any roles and opportunities that pop up. Okay. One really good resource for that is the Generalist World newsletter. Just want to shout that out. And then once we have that going, we're going to track all of our interactions and correspondence with whoever it is that we're applying to. And then we're going to prep for our interviews and keep everything organized like that. Okay. Lastly, we've got a little resources and job boards and newsletters database where we can capture the places where we're looking and the other things that might help. So let's very, very quickly jump right in. So all of the companies that are on our hot list, and then we're going to populate it with metadata, everything about them that we know, that we can think of, and then we're going to connect them through relations to our roles and opportunities database, to our interviews database, to our interactions and correspondence database. And we've got different views. So this one is filtered by work format, whether it's remote or hybrid, et cetera. This one is just our top picks, and then an archive of the ones that are no longer relevant. And then once we've done that, we're going to start capturing our opportunities that we're interested in. We can capture the post URLs from wherever they're from. And of course, this is centralized. So if there are some from LinkedIn and others from Greenhouse or Lever, it doesn't matter. This is your single source of truth. And you can put in all kinds of metadata about them. And again, make sure that they're connected to all of your other databases here. We've got other views to make it even more valuable. And then we can prep for our interviews. And of course, each one of these things has page templates too. Okay, I'm just going to gloss over this stuff because you can all look at it after the fact. But let's just wrap up by looking at where we can capture all of our correspondence with each one of the companies that we're courting. Okay, and then capturing which company and which role each one of those correspondence activities is related to. And then, yeah, we can just capture all of our resources here with a URL. Top of the list here is the GW Opportunities for Generalist newsletter. And there you have it for job hunt management. I think that if you can keep your job hunt nice and organized in a system like this, then it can really kind of make the process not just easier on you, but I think when things are organized like this, you'll find that you'll actually make mental and visual connections to things you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And this exercise of making a wish list or hot list of companies you want to work for is like the highest level, most powerful, most impactful thing you can do at the start of a job hunt, because that is your North Star. That is your sort of guiding flashlight. And the companies that are on that list aren't necessarily the ones you're going to end up working for, but they're the ones that are going to inspire or give you ideas for the kinds of companies you might want to work for. And in fact, before I worked at Notion wasn't on my list. I never even kind of imagined that I could potentially work at Notion one day, even though I had been working as a Notion consultant for some years already. My sights were set kind of differently. And I ended up adding them to that list because of some of the other companies that I ended up putting on there. So it's a worthwhile exercise. Okay. All of us here are generalists, and we do a lot of different kinds of things. Why? Because variety is the spice of life. I don't know. There's just too much cool and interesting stuff in the world to do and to learn and to get involved with, especially for this kind of profile. And it's kind of hard to capture all of that because I don't know. I personally am doing all kinds of very distinct types of work in distinct spaces, and sometimes I can't even remember off the top of my head when I need to remember something when I'm I don't know, in an interview or meeting or doing a presentation, something that I've done that's incredibly relevant, but it doesn't come to mind because, of the chaos that exists in a generalist's life, which is one of the main reasons why using Notion helps to channel all that chaos and all that will to do all different kinds of things. So I created this little body of work template. And this is a single centralized place where you can just capture, it's like a diary. You can capture all of the work that you produce and you create professionally in one place, one single source of truth. And you can write about it. You can give background. You can talk about the experience and process, the impact that it has. Oops. And you can give it other metadata, like what type of work it is or what category. Was it a client project? Was it a prototype you built? What is a YouTube video that you published, whatever, and the status of sharing. So some of these kinds of things are just for your own internal context. I want to remember all of the important and notable things that I've done in my career and have it all in one place, but I don't necessarily want to share everything. So we can control that here with the sharing status. I'm going to show you in a moment how. And then, of course, the applying a date for when you might have done it and a link to wherever it may live if it's something that lives online. Maybe it's a post, maybe it's I don't know, an article, whatever. Okay. So I've kind of, you don't have to read this, but I've explained here that this is nice both for keeping this overhead view of your work for your own internal context, and also it's super handy for when you're doing your job hunt, when you're networking, when you're fundraising, whatever else you may be doing where you need to reference and pull up those sound bites of the things that you've done in your life and your career that will add value to the conversation and help to position you. It's all here for you. So to take it one small step further, we've got a little live site. Here, this one I've called the Dave Mence Body of Work. And it's kind of like a little, almost like a resume portfolio type of thing. These are all of the very same entries from my parent body of work database, except in an automated way. The only ones that will show up here are the ones that we've marked as shared publicly on Web Portfolio. And once those are marked, they're here and they're visible for the world to see. And then, of course, you can go ahead and you can share and publish it. And once you publish it, boom, you've got yourself a live public web link. And if you want, you can point this instead of davemence.notion.site / the URL slug. I can actually point a custom domain to it. I can do davemence.com and it can come to this page. This is a very, very easy way to have a web presence without having to build a website. And I'm a huge fan of using this tool, which is called Notion Sites. And I have tons and tons of use cases for it. So we're almost out of time. Let's very, very quickly wrap up with this last quick one. So many of you who are generalists are kind of at a point in your careers where you might be thinking, should I continue with my full-time job? I dream of having my own business or building a startup or a product, or just simply going off on my own and working more flexibly for my own client base. But it's scary, right? You've got stable income from your job. Can you give that up? Well, you're going to find out if you just fill out this little form. We're going to give it a name. Let's say, excuse me, we'll call it, what's today? Today is July 31. Perfect. I'm going to ask for some help. Can some of you volunteer some amounts to put in here? Current liquid assets in dollars. 3. Sometimes that's true. 25,000. Perfect. All right. Total monthly income from investments and other continuing income. This is income that will continue even if you give up your full-time stable job. Okay, 1,500. Sounds good. And average monthly expenses. 3,750. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Thank you, Dana. Let's go for it. Let's check our financial runway. So the way that this works, it's a Notion form, and it takes a few seconds to spit out the output, but the output will come right here below, and it'll give us our answer. There you go. Financial runway check, July 31st. Based on your current liquid assets and your investment income and other continuing income, you have 11.1 months of financial runway. Well, isn't that really good context? We can start making some, I don't know, maybe like major life decisions based on that. Oh, I've got almost a year. That's pretty comfortable. I could do a lot in even 3 months. So maybe I can confidently move in that direction. So yeah, if any of you want to connect with me, then we've got a few ways to do it. Okay. You can check me out on my Notion consultancy website, systematicaf.com. You're going to get all these links after the fact, by the way. You can download uh, any of these templates on the Notion marketplace at notion.com/@systematicaf. And then this is something I'm very, very excited about. After planning this for a really, really long time, a few weeks ago, I launched my YouTube channel and I've posted 2 videos so far. So this is like a huge thing for me that is, I don't know. I guess it's been coming for such a long time. It almost feels surreal. But what a pleasure it is to all of a sudden have a place to kind of share my curiosities and the things I'm excited about. So if you want to subscribe, it's mostly, I want to say it's mostly about Notion, but it's kind of like a generalist themed channel. I'm going to talk about all the various different kinds of things that I'm into. And I'm going to always tie each one of those things into being able to use Notion to help whatever that thing is, to help nurture it, to help elevate it, to help improve it or organize it. And so, yeah, you can expect a lot of Notion stuff. And hopefully, I'll see you there. Also, I'm going to send you a couple links in the resources to 2 articles that I wrote last year. They were both extremely well received. I honestly never expected to have that much positive response from them. But I wrote this very long article about generalists, the future of work related to generalists, and specifically Generalist World. And I think it was so well received that it's now featured on the GW marketing website on the join page. So go ahead and check that out. And I also wrote an article, a very long article about Notion and who it's for and why and all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of neat because it's a GW workshop about Notion. These are 2 things that align very nicely, 2 things I love very much. And I think because of the people that are here today having interest in both of those things, I think maybe you'll all enjoy both of them. So here's the resources page. Okay, it looks like this. You're going to get a link directly to it. It's got the link to that article and that article. It's got a list of, excuse me, some of my favorite Notion YouTubers, people that you can learn and go deeper on Notion with. Okay, they're all really, really good teachers. And then a little bit about my Notion consulting. And if any of you want to talk about it, then you can reach out to me either through there or in the GW Slack community. And then finally, a link to each one of these templates that I shared with you today. Okay. Uh, yeah. Well, that's pretty much it. I just want to before we end, thank you again, Edge and Millie, for having me, and thanks everyone for coming. I hope that you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. And it's just really cool to be in a room with a bunch of generalists because, frankly, like the most interesting people that I speak to on a day-to-day basis are the people in this community. And it feels good to be part of it.
Thank you so much, Dave. This was amazing. I'm wondering if we have 7 minutes on the clock, we have a few questions. Do you think
Yes,
we
let's do
can
it.
try and boom, boom, boom through
I'm
them?
I'm totally fine for
You,
time. So
you
if
game?
people want to stick around longer, it's fine.
Okay, I'll try and smush some together if they're kind of similar. The first one I think is going to be quite relatable to a lot of people, and that is essentially when you start on Notion, it can feel a bit overwhelming. How do we avoid falling down the rabbit hole of that overwhelm and just like abandoning it? Do you have any tips there?
Very, very good question. That is super common because of the way the tool is built and designed to do so much. Just by nature, it's a little bit daunting, and that's why people talk about that blank page syndrome that people have in Notion, especially early on. There are a few ways to help mitigate that. One is to start with templates, the gateway drug of Notion. If you're starting from what is not a blank page and you have scaffolding already, it, it doesn't even need to inform exactly what you end up with because you can massage it around so much it's not even recognizable as the original template that you started with, but at least you started with something. So that's a really good way to totally just leapfrog right over that blank page syndrome feeling. The other thing is, and I see this with people using Notion for personal use, but mostly people using Notion for professional use and on teams. Notion does a lot, right? People want to build in all of the a million views, tons of formulas, lots of automations, interconnectedness. They just want to build in everything possible. If it's doable, they want it to be part of it. And it's not necessarily the best approach for early adoption. And I like to look at the process of building in Notion for everyone as an exercise in user experience design. The same way as when you're designing product or designing for the web, you're trying to make it accessible. And in the case of Notion, you're trying to make it accessible for yourself. So I'm always urging people to throttle the complexity of their Notion workspaces and their Notion tooling that they build. Make it so that it's a no-brainer for you to use. Make it so that there's low friction for you to actually want to come in and make a routine out of putting your data into your tooling every day. And like I said at the beginning, if you're using it every day, that's what's giving it value. So keep it as simple as possible. And that I think also goes a long way in sort of eliminating that blank page syndrome feeling. Hope that answers the question.
That is awesome. Oh gosh, there's some fantastic questions here. A quick one that I think is quite relevant is what are the Notion AI capabilities?
Cool. Notion has leaned in very, very heavily into AI and building AI into the product as a core building block. There are a lot of ways to use AI within Notion, including there's there's a chatbot that you can talk with, which you can ask questions about everything in your Notion workspace. And so it becomes your own little personal internal agent accessing your own data. And of course, the ability to access the world's data through both Claude and ChatGPT. And as of recently, you can vibe code essentially. You can vibe build your own Notion databases, and so you can explain what you need. And there's a build mode. You explain what you need, it'll build it for you. You don't necessarily need to understand all of the things that you would historically need to understand in order to build all that tooling into one of those databases. You can explain what you need and it'll kind of do it for you. But that being said, I urge everyone to also have like a baseline understanding of how all the tooling works so that when you ask it to build something for you, you know why it's built it that way and you know how to then manage it and tweak it further from there.
That's fantastic. I think this might be on people's minds. What is your ratio calculation of doing Notion versus like doing the things? So like setting things up on Notion versus actually like doing the work. What's your kind of ratio for that?
Yeah. I'll answer that in more of a qualitative way, maybe. I think that a lot of people who don't use Notion, they look at Notion people who spend so much of their time in Notion and think they're just doing the work around the work, and then they don't have time to do the work. But I think it's kind of the opposite. That when you're keeping everything organized, it greatly reduces the amount of the actual work. You know the old analogy, like you've got 6 hours to cut down a tree. You spend 4 of those hours sharpening the axe. Working in Notion is constant axe sharpening, and it makes the work so much easier. Also, what people end up doing is they end up actually doing the work in Notion. If you're any kind of creator, if you're any kind of consultant, contractor, you're doing a big chunk of your actual ideation and often the actual building in Notion pages. Because of course, Notion is it's like a document editor on a very high level at the end of the day, right? So I like that. We got a comment. Do it nice or do it twice. Yes, totally.
Mhm.
So yeah, I end up spending a huge amount of my time, even when I'm doing like a Webflow build or when I'm doing a branding or a strategy project, I spend a good chunk of that time actually using the Notion tooling that I build for that kind of work. So yeah, it's kind of my workspace. It's like where I actually do this stuff.
Mhm. Okay, last question for the evening. It's a nice quick one. How does one become a Notion ambassador?
Good question. Very, very good question. Uh, you just apply. No, being a Notion ambassador is it's a really cool thing. I think it's for a very specific profile of person. Uh, it's all it's voluntary, obviously, and it's just volunteering of your time to be an advocate for Notion. And you should be a Notion ambassador if you are extremely passionate about Notion and if you want to give your time to helping the Notion movement, I guess. Um, there aren't really other perks necessarily to being a Notion ambassador other than being connected with it. And of course, being part of the Notion ambassador community, which is another wonderful, incredible community that I love spending time in, very much like Generalist World. So, yeah, if you are a content creator and want to create around Notion, if you are a consultant or a coach, or if you want to start an in-person community in your city, being a Notion ambassador is kind of the way that you get all the support for those things. Um, and for me, it's been incredibly valuable and very enriching. So yeah, I think that if any of you feel the same way as I do, it's a really neat thing. And there are a lot of cities in the world that don't have Notion ambassadors. So if you're from one of them that you haven't heard of an in-person community and you're really into this kind of stuff, start one. That'd be great. You can start one before you become a Notion ambassador, and then become a Notion ambassador because you're the founder of your city's Notion community.
So cool. Dave, this has been amazing. I believe Edja has dropped the link to where we're hanging out on LinkedIn. Come and say
Yeah,
hi there. It's the best way to meet others who are on the call.
Thank you.
I haven't asked Dave. Before you go, can you share that resource on the chat because I think people are.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I will send it to everyone via email tomorrow, but for the people who are already here.
All right, here you go, everyone.
Great. And thank you so much, everyone, for spending the hour with us. And Dave, this was fantastic. You're a wealth of knowledge, and we're very lucky to have you in Generalist World
No,
and
thank
as a
you. Thank
friend.
you all so much.
See
Have
you
a
on
great night,
Monday, everyone.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.